All right, this is If My People Bible um, reading, part 51. We are in the book of Genesis, chapter 35, verse 17. Um, Rachel is getting ready to bear a child, and this would be second one. It reads, and as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, for you have another son." In other words, that she was in such difficulty she didn't even realize it. We made a note here. The first sin noted of Rachel was in the Bible was stealing, taking teraphims, these little small gods, from her father Laban, and now at this time Jacob is removing them from his clan. He's a slow learner. Uh, he lived to be an old man, 180. No, I think his father did, um, but he lived to be an old age too. Anyway, and yet right after this, Rachel dies. It's just something to ponder. You take a look at the people and the word here when we get to Moses and his wives and see what happens to them. It's interesting how the men, for some reason, outlive the women. It doesn't really make sense until you start looking at their behavior. Verse 18, as she breathed her last, she was dying. She named her son Benoni. Benoni. Benjamin is the English word. But she named him Benoni. Um, his father named him Benjamin, what we call Benjamin. Benoni means son of my pain. Ben, son of pain, son of my right hand. Jacob loved her, and to this day, I think there's still the area where it's believed that Rachel's tomb exists in Bethlehem area. Quite frankly, to comment on these last few chapters, we said this. This chapter is really all about death of Deborah, Rebecca, Rachel, Isaac. Chapter 36, and this one's all about it. Esau lives in Edom. And Edom is an area east in Arama, east of Jerusalem, and the area is east of the Dead Sea, Jordan River. Um, and what good came out of Seir? Um, Not much. So you take a look at that all the way down through into modern day Saudi Arabia, where later on as we go through this, it's very obvious that the amount of Jabal el Jabosh, the amount of the law, the where the laws were written, Mount Sinai, is uh, not in what is called the Sinai Peninsula. It is not the fortress or the area of Catherine, St. Catherine, which is a tourist attraction in southern Sinai. It is not in northern Sinai in the desert area or in Padamaram. It is in Saudi Arabia. And the Red Sea that they crossed over they did cross over a Red Sea there. They didn't cross over the Reed Lakes or any of that stuff that you read about. Um, so, but we'll get into that later. Just an introduction. What they do in chapter 36 is they go through a pile of names, and you'll find that these pile of names amount to nothing. These are the tribes of the family that comes out of Esau, and what you get from it more than anything else, you hear the word chiefs and kings and all this. And for us today in the modern languages, when someone was a king in these days, most of the time that's the word today for mayor He was a mayor. I used to live in a little town called Farmington, and it was north of a town called Fredericktown. And these had mayors. A mayor is basically an elected official who takes care of that town or that township and works within a parish or a county. And they work within a state, and the state works within a government of the United States, the federal government. So that's how that works. In these days, they use the words chiefs because if someone has, like for instance, was Abraham a patriarch? Yes. Was he a chief? Yeah, he was a chief. Was he in charge of his entire family? Yes, he was. So that's how that works, and that's what you get out of all of chapter 36. It just lays down a foundation of incredible amount of lineage that we can't do today. No one, that most people I know can't. You can't lay down your family names this detailed, and so thousands of years from now, somebody can open up your treasure chest of lists of names and they can prove your lineage through what you wrote thousands of years ago. And yet, that's what happens in this modern Bible. That's why this Bible has a lot of genealogy in it, because thousands of people who hate Yahweh, who absolutely deny Yeshua, have tried their very best using the most highest amount of money you could possibly imagine to prove that the Bible is a bunch of hooey, and everyone has failed. The arguments continue on. The arguments always will, because the next generation, there's always going to be a bunch of clowns that think they know more than people for 4,000 years who kept records. That's just the way it is. It's human nature. Everybody thinks they're intelligent and more than the other people. But someone who writes down that much information. Now, for thousands of years, people put this stuff in writing that can be found in libraries. And this is pretty hard to prove as wrong. I mean, when you do, it's easy to prove because all the evidence is there for you to look at, the same empirical evidence. There is no empirical evidence of value today in YouTube. Anybody, I can get on here and I can say anything unless you look into what I'm saying and you read the word deeply. You can believe this hook, line, sinker without a problem, or you can believe anything I say that's a total lie, and you won't be able to disprove it because most people won't do the work that it takes to prove it. I'm just saying, take a look at anything I've said and take a good look at it, and don't judge anyone, including me, until you've done what I've asked. Read this Bible from beginning to end, because that's what you're supposed to do. It's in our doctrine of faith. Read the Word every day. Rightfully divide the Word. Pray to the Father for answers, and He will give you responses in the Word. Not some book bought at a library that somebody's trying to sell and make a living off of, like so many people I know. Chapter 37. Jacob lived in a land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. Now that's the land that he's supposed to be, and they're supposed to be there forever and ever. Now this is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Comment. Joseph is named first because he obtained the right of the firstborn, and he was born the firstborn of Rachel, and his brother was Benjamin or Benoni, the rightful covenant wife of Jacob. Very important. Now his other brothers older. How do you think this is going to go? Now Israel loved Joseph. This is another problem. Here comes the next problem. Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him reaching to the feet. Comment, we put down that type of robe is called a pas, meaning palm-like patches on the robe. And it was a coat of many colors. Now, I've seen the plays and the movies about this with Donny Osmond and all that from years ago by, and it's a bright robe full of tons of colors, all kinds of colors on the rainbow. That's not what that means. What it means is this in Arabic. It means a coat of many colors is you have 20 sheep involved in something, and each of the sheep has different colored wool. And when you put them together, when you combine them together and make a rich coat out of it using the finest of each of the lambs or the sheep, you end up with a coat of many colors. But it's the same color as this sweater behind me, only different shades of color. That's what that robe was. So, but it was cool watching the play, and it's amazing how as much people as the Mormons claim to be such astute in reading the Word, they kind of missed the boat on that one when they all got together and created that play. Anyway, he tells the dreams, and several times in the Bible it uses the word diviner. Joseph was a diviner. That means he got his information from prayer, from supplication, from the Ruach Hakodesh. He didn't spin a dreidel, and he didn't do wizardry and sorcery and witchcraft that sometimes the word divination comes from. But he received dreams, and these dreams he applied to reality. That's what he means by when you read this and say, well, Joseph was involved in witchcraft. No, he wasn't. Read the Word, not just a sentence from part of the Bible, the whole Bible, and put it together, and you can easily see what that means. Okay? When his brothers decide to get rid of him, they sell him off to Sabaeans. They sell him off to other traders, traders, and to get rid of him. That's the way it's done in those days. If you have an opportunity and you sell someone and you have ownership over them or control, that's what you do. And the Midianites sold Joseph to Egyptians, to Potiphar, who is one of the Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Now, that's a pretty high position of authority. So our comment is on this is that the importance of chapter 38, coming up, is to bring about the names of those who came from the lineage of Yeshua's earthly family. Names you will read again in the book of Matthew: Judah, Tamar, Pharez, Zerah, some of those names. All sinful people, and yet Yeshua came out of this line. Interesting. So now we're in chapter 38. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. Hira meaning unknown, but a friend of Judah. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her, and he lay with her. Shua meaning prosperity. And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son who is named meaning watchful. She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. Onan meaning vigorous. And she gave birth to another son and she named him Shelah. It was at Kedzib that he gave birth to him. Shelah meaning prayer. So these things, word means things in the Bible. So watchful, vigorous, prayer. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. Tamar meaning palm. And we're at verse 7 in chapter 38. We'll end it there. So things are getting interesting. Things are getting, keep up with the story because this whole family is about the family of life that we live today. All right? Talk to you soon.